You tell your nan you earn 80 grand a year. She gasps. She clutches her chest. As far as she's concerned, you've made it. You're basically a CEO now. She starts telling the entire family you're doing very well for yourself. Meanwhile, you are sitting in a share house with three strangers, eating 2-minute noodles, mentally rationing your coffees for the week. 80 grand. The salary that sounds absolutely enormous, right up until you try to actually live on it in an Australian capital city. And here's the kicker. It feels completely different depending on which city you're in. So, today, how it really feels to earn 80 grand in Melbourne versus Sydney. Stick around, because the gap is bigger than you'd think. Let's break it down. Quick reality check first. 80 grand is the salary. It is not the money. After the tax office takes its cut, income tax, plus the Medicare levy, which is the little slice that helps fund the public health system, you're pocketing somewhere around $1,200 a week. And here's the first plot twist. That take home is identical in both cities. Same to the dollar. Tax is federal, so Canberra genuinely does not care which city you cry in, which means every single difference from here on isn't about what you earn. It's about what each city charges you just to exist. Right. Ding ding. Let's run the rounds. Round 1, rent. The big one. The dream killer. Sydney comes out swinging, and not in a good way. Sydney is reliably the most expensive city in the country to rent in. The median unit right now sits at around $720 a week. Melbourne, closer to $550. So for basically the same one-bedroom flat, Sydney charges you roughly $170 more every single week. Stack that up over a year, and it's the better part of 9 grand. $9,000. Same job, same salary, same cozy kitchen where the fridge lives suspiciously close to the bathroom. Sydney just quietly bills you 9 grand extra for the privilege of being there. Massive points to Melbourne. 1-0. Round 2. Getting around. Both cities will move you about just fine, so this one's closer. Sydney's got trains, buses, and ferries. And let's be honest, commuting by ferry past the Opera House does make you feel like you're in the opening credits of your own life. Melbourne's got the trams, including a free tram zone right in the city centre, which feels like getting away with something every single time. Call this round a draw. You'll get to work in both, you'll just feel slightly more glamorous doing it in Sydney, and slightly richer doing it in Melbourne. 1-1 near enough. Round 3. The fun money. As in, what's actually left over? This is where the numbers get personal. You've got that $1,200 a week, remember? In Sydney, once rent rips out around $700 of it, you're left with maybe $500 for food, transport, bills, and the radical concept of fun. In Melbourne, with rent closer to $550, you're sitting on more like $650. That extra $150 a week doesn't sound life-changing, but it's the entire difference between, yeah, let's go out, and I'm staying in again because going out has become a financial event. Same 80 grand. Melbourne just hands you more actual life to spend it on. Melbourne edges further ahead. 2-1. Round 4. The vibe. And this is Sydney's big comeback. Because here's the thing. Sydney is stupidly, unfairly beautiful. The harbour, the beaches, sunshine that turns up like it's contractually obligated. On a hot day, you can finish work and be swimming at Bondi by 5 for free, which is exactly the kind of thing that makes you briefly forget your landlord exists. Melbourne fights back with culture. Coffee that ruins you for every other city, the sport, the music, the food, but it also serves you 4 seasons in a single afternoon and a sky that's grey more often than it likes to admit. Sydney sells you the postcard. Melbourne sells you the lifestyle. On pure looks, we'll give it to Sydney. No argument. 2-2. Round 5, how it actually feels, which is the whole point. Here's the emotional truth, and the numbers back it up. On 80 grand in Sydney, you can do everything right, good job, solid salary, and still feel weirdly broke, because the maths just doesn't leave you much. The city is gorgeous, and it constantly gently reminds you that you can't quite afford it. On 80 grand in Melbourne, that same salary tends to feel like enough. Not rich, but comfortable. You can have the flat, the social life, and a small but real sense that you're getting ahead, instead of just treading water in paradise. For the feeling of the money, which is literally the entire question, Melbourne takes it, and it takes it clearly. And here's the thing almost nobody mentions. The number on your pay slip means nothing on its own. 80 grand isn't a lifestyle, it's raw material. And the city you spend it in decides what it actually buys. The exact same salary can feel like scraping by, or like quietly winning, and you didn't get a pay rise or a pay cut. You just changed your postcode. So, the verdict. Where does 80 grand actually feel better? And this time, it's not a cop-out. On 80 grand, Melbourne wins. Clearly, you're keeping the better part of 9 or 10 grand a year just on rent. You've got an extra 150 a week to actually live on. And that same salary stops feeling like survival and starts feeling like a life. Sydney is the more beautiful city. That part's genuinely true. But beauty doesn't pay your rent. And on 80 grand, Sydney mostly leaves you admiring a harbour you're a bit too broke to enjoy. The only reason to choose Sydney on this exact salary is if the beaches and the sunshine genuinely mean more to you than 10 grand a year and your peace of mind. And for a few people, honestly they do. But for most, on 80 grand, it's Melbourne. And it's not even that close. So next time your nan proudly tells the family you're doing very well for yourself, you'll know the honest answer. In Melbourne? Yeah, pretty well actually. In Sydney? Go ask the bloke in the share house with the fridge in his bathroom.